Well, good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here so early. We're Pim and Victor, and for our living we create mysteries, which is a great job. And it's not such a coincidence, since both of us have a certain attitude in life. We're very open to mysteries. We're open to the adventure, and in this adventure we completely surrender ourselves. Like the Alice in Wonderland, there's a small door, but no one really knows what's behind it and what kind of world can unravel behind it. But before we have to enter the door, you have to completely surrender yourself and drink a potion and therefore sort of shrink and don't know what's going to happen. So that's the way we are in life. So we want to talk a little bit about serendipity. And serendipity is something that we believe is a very strong thing to have and to experience. Serendipity. And after that, we're going to talk about the design process to finish off with a small secret to reveal. And you guys are the first ones to know. So as I said, serendipity. Something is funny on the slides.
It's very slow.
Well, I want to tell you something about how Victor and me met. I'm graduated as an architect, and there was one day in the weekend I was working on a very boring assignment, and I saw a competition for a company that cuts designs out of a MacBook, and this competition was for the king. And I decided, okay, let's just leave everything behind. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to focus on this crazy little door, and I don't know what's going to unravel behind it. And the funny thing is, this company was founded by Victor.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had this idea of doing this PR stunt with this, actually, let me just show you. This is what those MacBooks look like. And we wanted to do, for the crowning of the king, create one designed by anyone in the Netherlands. So we had this big competition, and we, in the end, out of 125 designs, got to choose between, on the left, this very stately design, and on the right, the funny one. And I got into a bit of an argument with our sponsor, iCenter, because they wanted the stately one and I wanted the funny one. And then it was 3 at night and we had to start cutting out the MacBook, and I was the only one left, so I made the call. And I'm eternally grateful for that, because that was Pim's design, and that is the story, or the beginning of our bromance. This is how it looked cut out. This is when Willem-Alexander was touching it, and it's real! Yeah, and we're still waiting for a photograph of Amalia to pop up with one of the MacBooks. So that's how it all began. And then we had coffee, and I talked a little bit about this experience of presenting to the king at a big conference. And the funny thing was, we also had a laser cutter there, and the king thing was nice, but this laser cutter was getting all the attention because he had lots of sparks and smoke and mystery for all these, well, geeks like me at this tech conference. And so I said to Pim when we first met, there's a nice store concept. Maybe we could create like a tattoo shop for objects with a laser cutter.
Yeah, and I was an architect, and I said, okay, let's forget about the prize, because the prize I won was actually a cutout design, and since you can see, my MacBook still has the Apple logo.
3 years later, it's shameful.
Yeah. And then we decided to start this Uncover Lab together.
Yeah, it's actually, so this is 4 weeks after that first coffee. We had our first shop together in the Zeedijk, designing and burning designs into everything basically. And this is very little to do with Sherlock and the mystery experiences that we make, but it has everything to do with an attitude of when you follow a spark, when you follow this energy or open a door, and you don't know where it's going to end up, but sometimes you end up in this really beautiful place, and it's most importantly a very long-lasting collaboration.
yeah, this was my Alice in Wonderland door, but you never know where it is and when you have to open it.
Yeah. And the one thing that it does have to do with Sherlock is that when we were in this store, approached by a guy who had a basement available, and he wanted to make in that basement, in this building, a maker space, so a place with lots of machines and laser cutters and CNC cutters. And he asked us, would you like to set up a kind of a version of this store in our basement? And we inspected this metaphorical door and we felt the space and we said, this is not it, no. Let's not do this. However, we always remembered that basement, and then when half a year later we got an idea for something else, we went back to this building. All right, let's, oh yeah, this is actually part of the philosophy of, on the one hand you can say just going with the flow. All these luckinesses are very driven by connection. So the way that Pim encountered the original competition was because a friend of mine had shared it, which was also a friend of his. This connection with the building was also via. So I love this quote, you have to be lucky, but luck favors the connected. So always try to be making new connections, always opening these doors. Even if you don't want to go through them, it's good to sense it, because we didn't want to make anything in the basement then, but later we did. All right. Just very quickly to tell you who Sherlock is. Sherlock is the first escape room maker and later mystery experience maker in Amsterdam. We were the fourth in the Netherlands. And we are a conglomerate of 4 very different artists. So I used to be a filmmaker, Pim's an architect. We have an opera singer in our founding core and a music producer. This is our team a year ago, ever since it's expanded quite a bit. So this is after 2 years, we're now in year 3. And we've also been incredibly lucky to be able to present our 2 main releases, our 2 big experiences in this show. And the first time that we appeared here on the Untitled Door, it actually helped catalyze this whole hype of escape rooms. Because if you ask, so in the week that we started, there were 5 escape rooms in the Netherlands. Half a year later, when this show had appeared, 400 different escape rooms had appeared in the Netherlands. So, and if you ask many of them, you'll hear that they were sparked by this appearance in the Untitled Door. So, it says more about the influence of the show than about us, but we are very lucky to be a part of that. All right. So this building had something very special in it. And again, we were very lucky to encounter this because the Beurs was just remodeling their basement. This is the old stock exchange in Amsterdam, by the way. And they had just dug out their basement to make it more accessible. And they had found something very strange. Because it appeared that this man, who knows this man?
You go on back.
Oh, this guy. Anyone recognize him? He's one of our most famous architects. His name is... It's Berlage, indeed. And he actually, if you look very closely, appeared to be a member of a secret society called the Order of the Cross Keys. We, of course, wouldn't know anything about that. And he had, in his contract with the building, a stipulation, a very special deal, to keep his office intact for as long as the building stood. Even after his death in 1934, it should be kept intact and all the objects on the walls and on the floor should be left as is. And the building had no choice but to respect this. So when we came upon this story, we're like, whoa, we should use that and invite people to see what this room actually has to offer, because there appeared to be a lot of mysteries and puzzles there. And what it turned out to be, it was a testing ground for new members of the society. And so we are merely, Sherlock is merely the front, we're just the vessel carrying, testing new members into the society. So if you feel up for the task, come by. Right, so that's a little bit about our attitude in life and also, how we were lucky enough to, or at least feel lucky enough to become Sherlock. But now we try to look at how we got there in terms of designing, because there are very few theories on how to design mystery experiences, so we try to make one for you.
Yeah, we actually asked ourselves, how do we design an escape room, a mystery? So we created a process that starts with the Creative Cloud. We call it the Creative Cloud. It's not the Adobe Creative Cloud. It's our secret cloud of all kinds of sparks, fascinations, but also we have a lot of people that come to us and say, hey, do you know this location? It's empty. And then it gets into the cloud, because a lot of stories are created from the location. Well, there's a moment that in this cloud there are literally 100 ideas that we have to give it a green light to actually go into the experience design phase. We have the experience design phase, and after that there's a moment of iteration. We completely have to renew it. We have to change it. There's a lot of human behavior into it, and we have to sort of observe and change it. So,
do we show the next slide? Are you guys ready to see?
You're going to see some very secretive part of our Creative Cloud. I'm just going to show it very shortly, so be ready. All right, this is just a snippet of our cloud.
Yeah. These are all the things that are not in progress at the moment.
But how do we get this from the cloud to the green light? And this is a very delicate process. We decided to make a formula out of it. And the formula is going to come up. There's awesome square. How awesome is an idea? How big is the spark? It's very important. How big is the thing? You're like, we really have to try to make this. But it's also important, the decibels. How loud are you saying it? But how well is it resonating with the audience? So how much do you like the idea?
Yeah, it's actually team decibels. So the first one is the person carrying it, and decibels is kind of how does it resonate within the team.
But of course, we have to divide it by the impossibility of the ideas. Huh? Oh, you're doing it. That's okay.
Give an example of this in real life, how to get to the green light. So there is this one wish. We have a break-in experience and we call it the vault. And the vault is very well designed in the beginning, and in the end I think it could be better. I think there should be a more emotional, more explosive ending, and I would love a literal explosion.
You have a very awesome idea.
Yeah, exactly. So we wanted to create an actual explosive ending where we give the group a bit of clay, mark it C4 explosive, and have them burst their way out. So, and I was really excited by this idea. So the awesomeness factor was high, and
the resonance factor was extremely high.
Yeah,
we have to make it.
Yeah, and it's a year later, we still haven't figured out how to do that safely, so we haven't done it.
It's really impossible.
Yeah.
Yet. But we
Yet.
hope that we get out of the way and
Yeah.
finally make it.
If you know anyone in explosives or pyrotechnics, please come to us afterwards.
All right. So once we got the green light, we go to the design phase. And in the design phase, we have three main elements. We have the story, the mystery around which we create the experience. And of course, in this story, you have a certain challenge you have to face. It's a big challenge usually. There's one big goal, but there are also a lot of mini, tiny challenges within the experience. And of course, everything is within a stage. Then we map this into an experience journey. Victor? So this is our experience journey, and we start with the story. So there you see a storyline, in which is very important to remember that at the beginning and at the end, you really need a big high. The middle needs to be all right, but it's what people remember is how did it end and how did we start? And maybe there's a story that we'd like to tell you how we start at the Vault, to really see how sort of this high at the beginning and this immersiveness, how we create that.
Yeah. So what we believe is very important is that the experience doesn't start when you get there, it starts when you click book. And this is the email you get. Assemble your team on the 5th floor of the Q Park garage. Make sure you're not followed. And so what happens when people arrive? Oh, there you go. So what happens when you arrive on the 5th floor? Actually, you're not supposed to be on the 5th floor. You get a text. 7th floor, and then you see a couple of numbers and letters. And it turns out to be a license plate. And you go upstairs and you go looking for a particular car. And then all of a sudden, behind you, beep, beep, a car opens. And you inspect the car, you look inside, you look under the seats, you find nothing, but in the back, there's this little package, a briefcase. And you can't open it yet, you don't know what to do with it, but then you hear, psh, 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 over, team, are you in position? And there's a walkie-talkie underneath it. Take the walkie-talkie, you get your instructions to come to the building of the beurs, and you find next to the walkie-talkie, actually, you also find this, an invitation for a private viewing of an art gallery. So what do you have to do with an art gallery? And you come to the door, and oftentimes people ask, like, hey, we booked Sherlock's and we're here to play an escape room game. And our host says, what? What's an escape room game? Sorry, this is an art gallery. Boom. And people have to figure out, and this takes some time sometimes for them, to say, okay, hey, we're here for the private viewing. And
we have an invitation.
Yeah. Here's our briefcase of money. And that's as far as we'd like to spoil this experience, because a lot of the joy of having it, of course, is the mystery. So we don't really want to go much further.
We shouldn't.
No. But if you look at the chart, Tim.
Yeah, within the chart you have also points, dots of challenges. Finding the car is a challenge, opening it and finding sort of the walkie-talkie. They're all small challenges that we try to map on the experience journey. There's one thing that we sort of test our challenges with. There are 5 points. We say, okay, if they are okay on these 5 points, we give it them a go. So the first one is positive emotions. You always need to feel positive. So, where's the car? Oh, we find the car. Okay. You get a bit excited. So check, that's good. The second one is engagement. You don't want people to look on their phones, talk about whether or not they had a nice coffee. They want to really be sort of immersed. So once they're in the garage, everybody's sort of looking. Everybody needs to find the car. Okay, what was the license plate again, Victor? What was it? Oh yeah, I can see it there. So people are sort of working together, which is the second one, the third one.
If I can interject, I once did an escape room. I was in Edinburgh, so I had no friends there, and I did an escape room. Yeah, painful. I did it on my own, and it was so boring because there's no energy going back and forth, and you're just the only one in this room. And you're figuring out. At some point, I started talking to the host, and they started talking back because they just had pity on me. So it's a social thing.
Therefore, the third, relationship with other people. You usually can do an experience by 4 to 6 people, which is very important. Sometimes there's a challenge which you only have to do by yourself. No go. You can see other people just sitting around, chatting about something else, maybe even looking at their phone if they sneakily did take it. Then, fifth or fourth, meaning. If the puzzle doesn't have any meaning in the story, you don't really follow and you lose the immersion. So therefore, finding a car, finding a suitcase, all has to do with breaking in. Ringing the doorbell and saying, hey, we're here for Sherlock, we were playing a game, doesn't really bring you into this story. And therefore, every challenge needs to have a meaning. And last but not least, of course, accomplishment. Everybody wants to sort of accomplish something. You don't want to fail. So you want to have a big accomplishment, but in every small element you also want to have little small moments of accomplishment. And therefore you get a certain flow in the experience. Well, stage, the final element. If you look at the challenges, the flow, you have places. where the people go to. So you have the parking lot. From the parking lot, you go to the Beurs entry. There's a moment that you are in the gallery, which is the third one. And then eventually, you go into the vault. Well, your one works. At the end, I'm not going to spoil, so I'll put some question marks.
That's not fair.
Yeah, yours is working.
Yeah.
Thank you. So also, this is the vault, which is a big open space, and it's a bit lighter. But we also have a space. Whoops.
That one.
That is more enclosed, darker, more mysteries. And then even a space where you go in by yourself where even more focus is. And then we have to ideate this process. So we're going to give 2 examples how we ideate sort of the experiences. So if you look at the flow again, we check, okay, what is happening, but also why is it happening? We try to sort of envision the future, how people would react, but this is completely bollocks, we don't know it. And this is also what we've experienced. We can really not know what people do. We've had people making out, peeing in the room. There's really things that you're like, wait a minute, why do you do this?
Never leave a vase in an escape room, it's going to get used.
So in the port game, we have a game that is based on Rush Hour. Rush Hour is this little game where you have to change the cars and get the red car out. So we decided, maybe this is great if we scale it up, make it really big. We said, well, let's try it. So cardboard boxes, this is our office. We said, okay, well, we'll see, is this fun? Can we try it? We made a couple of adjustments, and eventually we found out, well, this is pretty fun, being an adult and being inside this room, going underneath and over, changing the boxes. So we decided, okay, we'll make it. So this is eventually the outcome of this process. And there's another ideation in the vault. In the vault, this one you like. Well, if you break in, we'd imagine one of the best things is to open this lock. You're like, oh, open the lock, you know, even in the movies, turn the wheel, and then you open the vault door. This is the moment you really want to have. We said, okay. So we spend around 1/5 of our budget to restore the old vault door in the Beurs. We hired some crazy, we believe, ex-criminals, because really there was no one that wanted to fix them. But at the end of the day, when people were in the vault, they didn't know how to use these knobs, because it's very complicated. You have to sort of turn them 4 times to the left, and then you reset them, and then 3 times to the right on the right number, and then we're 2 times to the left. And it wasn't engaging. There was no relationship with other people. And people were just like, yeah, you try it, I'm fucked, this doesn't work.
This is at the end of the experience, right? So you have this fantastic hour and a half, and then in the last 10 minutes, everything's frustrating. And so you have the opposite of what you want it to be, like the high point, you have a freaking low point at the end.
So there was one moment I was just walking into the Beurs, and the hosts were like, Pim, we have a problem, they're not able to open the door. So I said, okay, I'll just put on a hat, I'll pretend to be a criminal. So I just walked in the vault door and they were like, ooh, and then I opened the door for them, which again gave them a high point, but you cannot do that every time. Yeah. We are creative with some solutions some days, and sometimes we really don't know what to do. There was a moment even that I know that we locked somebody up and we forgot the key for it. So like, shit, we have to open it, because there's a moment that actually our host, our guard, opens the door. So we know that we still had this electric steel cutter. So they said, okay, we have to cut the wire or the electric
chain lock.
The chain lock. So they really got into it and they cut the chain lock, and the people in the room, they thought it was part of the game, which was of course great, but the hosts were sweating. Well, anyway.
I don't think we were ever supposed to say this in public.
Oh, shoot.
Not safe.
back to the thing, we decided to make a how to open a safe manual, which helped. It was a little bit better,
Not enough.
but really not enough. And luckily, we had some students from the HKU.
Actually, this was a part of this is an example of it being part of the Creative Cloud, because we always wanted to make not a physical game, but also a little prologue in a digital form. But it always felt like a kind of frivolous exercise because we still had to improve this ending of the vault. It was our main priority. And then Pim, you said like, hey, because I really wanted to make the digital game, and then you said, if you can make a digital game that teaches people how to open a vault lock, an old vault lock, then it's okay. And I said, great, now we have a story.
So
Yeah, you tell it.
we have a prequel to the vault, which is a small iPhone game that teaches you to be a criminal. And even it teaches you also how to use this lock. So in this way, we created from one thing that became a weakness in the room, slowly became our strength. And now we have something that is even more special. You have a prequel, you learn something, and in the room you're like, oh, I played this game, I know this. And then people are actually really able to open the door. So in this process, always something eventually comes out and we put it in the world. And today, we want to announce our green light announcement, but also something we want to put in the world. You really are the first ones to know, and we are very excited. I'll give you the honors.
Thank you. So for those who paid very, very close attention to this big cloud of wishes to make, in the upper right corner you might have seen the Erasmusbrug. Because as it turns out, we were very surprised to learn that this room that we discovered in the Beurs van Berlage, it was not the only headquarters of the secret society. Because when the Arminiuskerk, the one at the end of the Wittstraat and the Westsingel, were lowering their basement to make it accessible, they discovered a very strange and intact room among these ruins. And because we kind of have a large network of society members now, we were alerted. And they said like, hey, did you know that you're not the only ones? And we went, what? And we went and inspected, and indeed, a lot of the things were kind of similar challenges, and some were very different. And so we had no choice but to, come to Rotterdam. And if you want to be among the first to know when it opens, when it's ready for inspection, we have a little book here.
It's underneath you.
Oh yeah, it's very old school. We like it that way.
There we go.
Yeah, just write your email and we'll keep you posted. Yeah.